day, and welcome to another exciting quick take. We're going to start our series going through the Clarity Act, which was one of the series of acts recently passed by the US Congress and then signed by the president, codifying a lot of information around digital assets and digital securities and commodities. There's a great series on the Genius Act that's available on this channel where you can go through it in detail. And now we're going to turn our attention to the Clarity Act. Just some housekeeping. I'm Howard Krieger. I'm not a tax professional. I'm not an attorney. This is not financial advice. This is not legal advice. I have a background in structured finance. Check out my LinkedIn for more information there so you get a sense on how I'm coming at these issues. I also have a lot of experience in Web3, so certainly all these topics are near and dear to my heart, and always great to see more clarity. So the way this works is I'm going to share my screen, and I've already gone through and started the process of reading through a number of these acts, or through the acts, and I've highlighted certain phrases and what have you, and we're going to talk about the importance of it. One overarching theme, and I say this on all my broadcasts, is look for the use of language. The more sophisticated the language, the more robust the act, generally speaking. So the order in which things are mentioned, whether intentional or unintentional, generally the order in which things are laid out in these acts are also the priority of the administration or the group that's put the act together. That's an important consideration. Also, what's missing is also what is in there is as important as what's in there. So if you don't see a specific topic addressed, you can't assume it's going to be parked under one of these other terms. You've probably identified kind of a gap in the legislation. That might be something in the future that's dealt with. Also, if the same topic is mentioned twice, sometimes additional words might be added under an additional topic. Sometimes that language is clarifying, sometimes it's contradicting, but all of it is really just set up so that when future litigation occurs, which there always is going to be litigation around these acts, this becomes what the attorneys research and debate over. And then, of course, it's up to a jurist to decide what the actual interpretation is. So this act, the Clarity Act, is 250 pages. We are not going to do that on this one episode. We're going to break this up. And thankfully, it looks like they've already gone ahead, Congress, and broken this up into 3 titles, 4 titles, 5 titles. And so we'll break it up accordingly. So we're going to take this first title, which is on definitions and rulemaking. And I'm going to zoom in here. Again, I've already marked up a lot of this, and we're going to mark up as we go because I'll discover new things as I read it also. The one thing I did before I started was this is HR 3633. This document is publicly available. Anybody can get a copy of it and read it themselves. The notes are obviously mine. They did talk a lot about, or this first section at least deals a lot with the term digital commodity and really rules around digital commodities. And you'll see why as we go through it. But it refers to the Commodity Exchange Act and the Digital Commodity Exchange Act. And I wanted to include this definition here, right? So in general, a digital commodity is this, digital version of a thing that it excludes it's personal property that's been digitized, that excludes equity or debt interest. So a tokenized version of equity excluded. A profit share or revenue share derived solely from managerial efforts. So again, if it's a tokenization of something, maybe they don't call themselves equity or debt, but they say, hey, we're going to pay out based off of how well we perform. That makes it not a digital commodity. And then anything that entitles to an interest or dividend payment. So, hey, buy this token and you get X. as an interest payment or dividend, that's going to be excluded. So digital commodity is going to really fall outside anything that is what we would consider a security typically in the crypto space. Now that, of course, is a whole other can of worms, but this is where the act is focused. It's focused on digital commodities because that's kind of the first gray area, right? Like if I own a governance token, where do I fall? Like, where can it be traded? When does it cross the line into something that needs to be registered and accounted for? And where is it? Where do rules over the exchanges where those things trade fall? This is really where the act is looking to cover, and this is the Clarity Act. Go through the table of contents, right? There's a cool thing here. We're going to talk about expedited registration and the application of the Bank Secrecy Act, because the Bank Secrecy Act is where you're going to find a lot of your AML and your KYC and the real heavy compliance lift that is almost contrary to the ethos, the historical ethos of crypto, which is this sort of secret, anonymous, existential sort of asset. We talk about DeFi, etc. I'm going to skip the other table of content issues because we're only going to focus on Title I. Again, this is publicly available. And if I haven't highlighted something, it doesn't mean it's not important. It just doesn't really pop to me as something that we should pay attention to. I love the definition of blockchain: distributed ledger, independently verifiable translation, linked to cryptography, and propagated amongst a network to reach a consensus on the state of the ledger. So all three of these have to be in place for this to be related to blockchain: a distributed ledger of independently verifiable transactions. That means if you made your own blockchain system and you and your buddies are the only nodes, you're not going to fall under when they talk about blockchain here. But if you're a public or private chain and the results of the ledger are independently verified, then you would fall under the definition here. Any similar technology, I always thought these catch-alls are a little weird in the acts, but clearly they're leaving the door open for someone who comes along and says, hey, we're like this in every way but X, so we're excluded. The writers of this act are letting jurists have a window to classify something that doesn't meet those three requirements entirely, but acts like it, to then pull that back in. Blockchain application, composed of source code that's publicly available, including a smart contract or any network of smart contract. Here, this is where I wonder is, what's the definition of publicly available? You could be a member of a private blockchain. You can be an independent entity that's one of many that is that is working in the same blockchain application. But if the source code for that application is not made publicly available, then does that mean you're now excluded whenever they mention blockchain application? Or do they mean, is publicly available just two or more unrelated parties both having access to the same information? That is going to be a point of contention in the future, I'm sure of it. And then here, the blockchain protocol means publicly available source code of a blockchain. Again, publicly available, does that mean this only applies to public chain digital commodities, or does it apply to private chain commodities that have more than one unrelated party independently verifying transactions? That remains to be seen. They talk about DAOs and decentralized government systems, that the term decentralized governance system relates to any rules-based system permitting persons to form a consensus in the development, provision, maintenance, administration of the system. So anytime you have multiple unrelated parties that are able to contribute in any of these ways, that's your decentralized system, where participation is not limited to or under the control of a common group. So here we run into some interesting issues. You have three parties participating in a blockchain system. They each get one vote. Therefore, neither of them has control, or one could argue the one of them has control because they decide always with the other two who wins. But what common control means? Is it 51%, or some other measure that pushes everyone into common control? And I'm sure there's definitions here in some like business act or law that's going to be brought up when the rules behind this act become properly put together. With respect to decentralized governance system, the decentralized governance system and any persons are going to be treated separately. So I put versus. So if you, as a holder of a token in a decentralized system, participate in the DAO, that doesn't make you the decentralized governance system. You are separate from the system of many parties that make those rules. The legal entity, the term decentralized government system, includes a legal entity used to implement the rules-based system, provided the legal entity does not operate pursuant to centralized management. So you have to have a legal entity, right? It doesn't say it has to be in the United States, even though maybe that comes up later, but it says you have to have a legal entity. And this group of unrelated parties without common control making those decisions without some sort of centralized management having that control. This does allow then for bicameral systems where you have sort of like a leadership group inside the entity, as well as this decentralized system that then act in concert. But you certainly need a legal entity. And the centralized management can perform functions. Well, first off, there can't be centralized management, but there can be authority that performs administrative functions on behalf of the decentralized governance group. So if the DAO says jump, there can be an admin within the legal entity that says how high, and then of course jumps. Very important too, that person that's acting as an admin inside the company would not be considered the decentralized governance, as long as they're acting on the authority of that decentralized group. Digital asset, digital representation, digital commodity. It says under Section 1A of the Commodity Exchange Act. Really, it's the Digital Commodity Exchange Act because the Digital Commodity Exchange Act kind of rewrites the Commodity Exchange Act to include all these digital terms. A digital commodity affiliated person. So if you're part of an entity that issues a digital commodity, if you're affiliated, that's a person that has a right to acquire 5% or more, is a founder, is an executive or an officer or similar capacity at any point in the prior 12 months. It does not include the DAO. So the DAO is not considered an affiliated person of the digital commodity. That is interesting too. So we'll see how that matters, but I'm sure if they're going to hold folks that are affiliated persons to the digital commodity responsible for the digital commodity, it's interesting that the DAO is not included, but that's what they're saying, not my words, theirs. It's unlawful to evade the classification as a digital commodity issuer. So it's really interesting that there's language in here that will pass where it talks about how you can't assume that one of these any digital asset, you can't assume it's a security. You also can't assume it's a commodity. But it's saying here it's unlawful to evade the classification in order to facilitate the sale. And that includes any arrangement involving the transfer of intellectual property associated with the blockchain system. So you have some IP, some rules-based bot or whatever associated with this digital asset, and you want to facilitate maybe raising money or something for that digital asset that helps fund the capital costs of this bot. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that we're tripping by using this analogy. But what they're saying is that if you try to say, hey, we're not a digital commodity because of XYZ, and this is what we're doing, we're parsing the language in the act in order to make sure we fall outside the line. If it's demonstrative, or you're able to demonstrate that the language used in all the legal agreements and the marketing and the sales, et cetera, and the representations of the company are purposely there to evade classification as a digital commodity, then you're doing something unlawful. And it's not common to find in these acts specific call out of activities that are unlawful. Usually they tell you what you need to do to be in compliance, not what is unlawful. So pay attention to that term, folks, because they're going to look to use that lever if necessary. Commodity issuer, meaning you have to be there for 6 months. You have the right to require. Okay, so this is important, right? In general, with respect to a digital commodity issuer, a digital commodity related person, so not affiliated, but now you're related, was you worked with the digital commodity in the prior 6 months in any capacity, and you have the right to require 1% or more of the units of that commodity from the issuer. And again, does not include the governance system. So the governance system could have that right. The governance system could have that role, but a person is separate from that governance, and it's a low bar. You worked for them, and you have a right to receive, some of those units. In addition, you also have definitions for senior employer. Super important that you understand this. If you're working for a crypto company or a digital asset company, where you would slot in those 3 buckets, because obviously there's specific rules that are in place for you to adhere to beyond what your company says, beyond what the state says, but here in this congressional act. End user distribution is the distribution of a unit of the commodity that does not involve an exchange of more than a nominal value, and is on a broad, equitable manner. So you put the digital commodity up in a liquidity pool on a DEX, and that's distribution there, right? Activities such as mining, validating, staking, etc. These are all forms of distribution. So anytime a person takes ownership of the token or does something with the token, like staking, like posting in a liquidity pool, even if after they do that act, they no longer have actual control of the asset, they're still part of the distribution. Okay, very good. Protocol consensus and user. So these talk about all sorts of activities that are included in end user distribution. Self-staking, where you have the node, you're staking it. Self-custodial staking with a third party. Custodial services. So you open an account with someone that does the staking on your behalf. And that all falls under distribution. Rulemaking for custodial and ancillary staking services. The Congress or the commission over this act has 9 months to basically figure out how they're going to define custodial and ancillary services. This is great. Mature blockchain, right? A mature blockchain system is not controlled by any person or group of persons under common control. So once your digital commodity has gotten to the point where it's not controlled by any person or group of persons under common control, it's now mature. And that's going to be your Bitcoin, that's your Ethereum, that is going to be your Solana. And basically what they're saying is those are digital commodities, because as far as I know, you buy Solana, you're not entitled to any interest. You're not relying on the common management to do anything with it. It doesn't meet any of those other requirements. It's a digital ledger thing. So that would be a mature blockchain system. Permitted payment stablecoins, because I'll talk about them later. Those are all under the Genius Act, et cetera, et cetera. Now we're going to skip over a lot of definitions. A lot of this act is redefining clauses in existing acts to include digital commodity, or be friendly and receptive to future rules that might impact that other act while meeting the requirements of this act from a rules-making capacity. Uh, Trading shall not include transacting in digital commodities. So this is very interesting, where basically what's excluded from uh, trading are acts that involve the transfer of the asset as a custodian, um, inventory, or supporting the operation of or validating transactions on a blockchain system. Uh, that in and of itself doesn't include that doesn't fall under the umbrella of digital commodity trading. Right? More definitions, more definitions. Uh, Associated person of a digital commodity broker. Again, if you're an officer, you're going to be considered an associated person with a digital commodity broker. A broker's one that solicits or accepts an order or supervises someone that does the same. A digital commodity dealer. If you're an associated person of a digital commodity dealer, you're an officer, agent, right? Or you involved in the solicitation of a contract to purchase or sale of a digital commodity, or you're supervising a person that does the same. Again, and the Bank Secrecy Act, of course, is the Bank Secrecy Act. In general, decentralized finance messaging system, software application that provides the ability to create or message a DeFi trading protocol. This is a definition of decentralized system. So a DEX is a great example of this. It's an application that lets a user create or submit an instruction for trading purposes. A DeFi messaging system does not include a system that provides any person other than the user with control over the funds of the user, the execution of it. So if you go to a DEX or a centralized exchange and use it, that is a messaging system. But if, say, your broker or your RIA is using a system to buy or engage in this digital commodity transfer, then that falls outside of a decentralized finance messaging system. So user interface only for the user. A decentralized finance trading protocol is a system where multiple participants can execute financial transactions with automated rules and algorithms without reliance on another person. It does not include a person or a group under common control that has the authority to make those changes. So again, pretty nuanced here, right? So it's not considered a DeFi trading protocol if somebody else has the ability to move and manipulate your funds. A blockchain system does not operate, execute solely based on pre-established transparent rules. So I guess just bots, like a bot exchange network, is not considered a DeFi trading platform. It has to have people in it that are using their own funds to trade. Here, a definition of digital commodity, right? A digital asset that's intrinsically linked to the blockchain system and is expected to derive from, I guess the value is derived from the use of the blockchain system. So a digital commodity is a digital asset linked to the system, the value of which is derived from the use of that system. Solana, right? Ethereum. Relationship to the blockchain system. For the purposes of the paragraph, a digital asset is linked to the system if it's related to the functionality or the operation or the activities of that system. It's issued, programmatically by the system, or it's used to transfer value between members on that blockchain, used to access activities or services on that blockchain, and used to participate in the decentralized governance system of that blockchain, or used or removed from circulation to pay for fees or verify or validate transactions on that system. I'm thinking comp and compound. I'm thinking DAI tokens in Maker. Used as payment. I mean, this is really the block and tackle right here. So like digital commodities. So starting in row 20, intrinsically linked to the system. It's used in the functionality in the operation. It could be issued or generated by it. It can be used to transfer value, used to access services, used to participate in government, used or removed to validate transactions, used as payments or incentives for that. That is a digital commodity. And if you're in a project and you're wondering what you are, look at that. If you check those boxes, then you know what you are. If it's profit sharing, if there's interest bearing, and it falls under that equity or debt component, you're probably sliding into security territory. And the exclusion is, here a security, right, is excluded. Any note or investment contract, gone. If it gives the holder an ownership interest, gone. If it makes the holder a creditor, not a digital commodity. If it gives the holder the right to receive interest, gone. If it's a derivative of the security, not a digital commodity. These are all types of derivatives that could apply. If it's a stable coin, out. Banking deposit, very interesting, right? Not a digital commodity. If it is a commodity, meaning if a digital asset represents, or interest in an agricultural commodity, it's not a digital commodity. Or an excluded commodity other than a security, an exempt commodity other than the commodity itself. So you can have a tokenized representation of wheat or durian fruit, and you would not be a digital commodity because you have a token that references interest in an agricultural good. Doesn't say anything about things like bacon or gold or diamonds, unless I don't understand what agricultural is limited to. That's probably also defined probably by the Department of Agriculture, what an agricultural commodity is. The other thing that is excluded, pooled investment vehicles, which are interests in entities that are invested in a lot of things, and a good or collectible. So NFTs are out, works of art, collectibles, rewards, rights, and licenses. These are not digital commodities. So you have a token that is a reward if you shop at these stores, not a digital commodity, because that's loyalty points, credit points, etc. Rights, licenses, tickets, right? You have a software license. If you own this token, you have a license to this software, not a digital commodity. All very important, and frankly, something that I would concentrate on as an issuer to see if I fall into any one of those buckets. This is the big one, right? And I posted this on LinkedIn. No presumption shall exist that a digital asset is a security, nor shall a digital asset be excluded from being a digital commodity. So basically, it's saying that starting with the passage of this act, that it is no longer the case that a new token coming to market is automatically a security until proven otherwise. In fact, it's the opposite. It's basically saying that you either are a digital commodity, one of these other things, or a security. You're not automatically a security until you're defined as something else. And it really should not be punitive. It's basically saying the SEC should not be punitive simply because, hey, there's voting or economic rights associated with holding the token and being part of the governance system. Remember, if you're a common stockholder and even a private company, you probably have voting rights. You'll be subject to time-to-time distributions. If you're a shareholder in a public company, you have voting rights and you get distributions. Those are securities. But just because a token gives you that type of control and may give you a similar type of interest, obviously not called interest or dividend, but because there is some appreciation of value in voting rights, that in and of itself does not make you a security. Again, not an attorney, just from a disclaimer, right? Having the fact that the digital asset can appreciate or depreciate does not make it a security. A digital commodity broker is any person who's engaged in soliciting and accepting from a customer, orders basically to buy and sell. And that's important. They're engaged in the soliciting and accepting orders, and they're subject to the rules of if they are subject to the rules of a registered entity, that might also define them as a digital commodity broker. But it doesn't include someone that solicits or accepts an order from someone that's an eligible contract participant. And I'm not sure what that means, what a contract, if they're talking about smart contract or some other term of art, because investment contract is used in the securities and commodities world. Okay, is a bank, commodity dealer, same rules, right? Like if you are a dealer or a broker if you act in the capacity of a dealer or broker as defined by this act. A digital commodity exchange is a trading facility that offers or tries to offer a cash or spot market for at least one digital commodity. So you're an exchange when you allow some sort of off-ramp to cash against at least one digital commodity. A mixed asset transaction is a transaction where you have an equity for or a security for a commodity. And that mixed usage matters because now you're going to fall under multiple guidance, right? You're going to fall under the terms of this act and the Commodity Act, but then you're also going to fall under all the rules in the security. See a red line in my markup here. It's because I read it. These are all definition changes, so not something that I'm super excited about like following. Yes, they have to change definitions in their other acts. It makes sense. Joint rulemaking, the SEC and the CFTC, these two entities here are going to have to get together and come up with rules behind this. And here it's the general principle of the United States government that a United States individual, doesn't say citizen, it says an individual. I don't know what an individual is. There's a protection of self-custody, that you have a right to maintain a hardware wallet or a software wallet for your own lawful custody of digital assets. And you can engage in direct peer-to-peer transmission using a hardware or software wallet, as long as the other side of the transfer is not a financial institution, and that the transactions don't involve property or interests that are already blocked, or there are sanctions or otherwise. Now, it doesn't apply to individuals acting in a custodial or fiduciary responsibility. So if you say, hey, you're going to take care of your friend's money, you're already crossing that line, right? You can do you can't do for others without adhering to these guidelines. Construction, this talks about all the acts and the rules here. 180 days later, the commission should issue rules about the process of delisting an asset. So if digital commodity exchanges are going to have to be registered, that is just a fact. The commission is taking on the authority under this act to delist those digital commodities that are not adhering to these rules, or if they're found to be unsafe. There might be more discussion on it later. Within a year, the commission has to come up with rules for margining and swaps and contracts for future delivery. All the advanced finance vehicles that exist in TradFi, rules for those have to be developed here. They're strictly looking to codify the basic, like trading a token for a token, to give some clarity to marketplaces on whether what you're doing is inside or outside of the law. A joint order, obviously everything has to be in the public interest and to protect folks. Again, skipping ahead. In general, this is important too, right? So expedited registration, right? So everyone's going to have to register. There will be a 90-day grace period after the rules are finalized where a digital commodity broker can act. I think as long as they're acting in accordance with the rules, they don't have to stop what they're doing while they wait for the registration to occur. That's basically the punchline. Within 6 months of the date of the act, the CFTC will come up with an expedited registration process. So with the passing of the act, everybody enters provisional status, where within 270 days of the rulemaking required under this section, in that 270 days, you're in the provisional period. And you're still required to pay all the fees and stuff that are required to, even under provisional status, you still got to pay Uncle Sam his or her money. Operations prior to regulations, let's see, they're still subject to the requirements. So you're still subject to the requirements of the Act, even if you're in a provisional or probational status. And here, a person in provisional status may continue to offer, solicit, trade, etc. So your crypto exchanges are not going anywhere anytime soon. Then, of course, if there is a delisting that occurs, you have to follow that delisting order, even if you're still in that provisional status. The CFTC can exempt persons from really all of the above, from the registration, from the delisting, etc., all up to them, right? Because golden rule, right? Who has the gold makes the rules. Customer disclosure, 30 days after the act, any person acting as a commodity exchange shall disclose to the customers, so acting in the disclosure documents, offering documents that the person's not registered with. So basically, while you're starting 30 days after the act, everyone operating an exchange in the US is going to have to call out that they're under this provisional status, unless they've somehow been expedited. But again, the rules for expediting haven't been made yet, so that would be really shady if that was the case. Derivatives, right? So basically they want to say that nothing in the Act is going to apply to essentially these security derivatives. Rules are going to be pending. Nothing in the Act authorizes any activities solely by the virtue of being registered. So, hey, great, you're registered as a broker or a dealer. That's awesome. Nothing in the Act allows you to do anything outside of the Act simply because you're registered. That's not a reason for it. Administrative requirements, very important. This is probably to clean up catch-alls for reporting. Blockchain developers, you're in good shape. You build things for the crypto industry. You will not be treated as a money transmitter or engaged in money transmitting solely on the basis of creating the software for blockchain or providing hardware or software to facilitate those exchanges, or providing infrastructure to support them. But however, nothing in this section should be construed as you being like untouchable. So if you do something or you build something, or something as part of what you create has you as the facilitator, the approver, as the holder, or performing some function, even automated, that appears to be money transferring, that you are in effect possibly interfering with, or even in that atomic second having custody, you're not going to be protected by the Act. But you're allowed to build stuff, but you still have to abide by the money transmitter rules. But merely making blockchain software, things that track, things that display, things that organize, those apparently are not going to put you in the money transmitter bucket. Also, nothing is looking to expand intellectual property laws. So nothing, the mere fact that you create something for the blockchain doesn't mean that you have a special set of IP rules. It's like any other software or other technology. That's just the name of the game. Okay, let's see. Non-controlling blockchain developer. Obviously, non-controlling means that you do not have the legal right or independent ability to control, initiate, demand, effectuate, burn without approval of a third party. That is going to put you right in the money transmitter thing. Okay, so I know we're getting close to the end here. Appropriate risks have to be assessed. Ongoing training. What is this for? Regulations consistent with all commodity brokers. So basically, if you're going to be a commodity broker or exchange, you have to have appropriate risk assessments, procedures and controls, compliance officers, ongoing employee training, independent audit functions, records of transmissions, suspicious activity reports, maintain effective customer identification programs, which could mean like dual handshakes, compliance with sanctions. And again, nothing in the Act should be viewed as limiting the ability of these government offices that are outside of the act. So even entities that are outside the commission can still exercise their authority where appropriate over your broker, your dealer, your exchange, etc. Okay, and it talks about how important the rules are. All right, so okay, went through that as quickly as possible. That is part one. I hope you liked it. There'll be a continuing series on the other parts to consider, but we do see in summary, we're really focusing so far in the Clarity Act on digital commodities, almost as if what the government's trying to do is say, here's the entire landscape of things that are blockchain related. Self-custody excluded, right? So now we're talking about non-self-custodied digital assets that don't have any kind of common control excluded, aren't securities, aren't these other vehicles. Here's and not commodities over agricultural goods apparently. So everything that's left, including the governance tokens, what makes you subject to the act? And now we're going to get into in the later sections what being subject to the act means. So with that, I want to thank you all for joining. Have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.